Hi, this is Justin from Reclaiming Christendom. This week, my colleague Gavin Ashenden is on London radio talking about three topics with Matthew Wright. The first is there really a new Islamic room in the Vatican? Gavin will discuss this very controversial topic. Second of all, Gavin will talk about whether or not the king is actually visiting the Pope, because there's a rumor he will be there next week for a public prayer. If this is true, it'll be the first time since the 1500s that the monarch of England is publicly praying with the Pope. Thirdly, Gavin is going to discuss why he left the Anglican Church after 40 years, where he served as a bishop, and moved to the Catholic Church. What did the Catholic Church offer him that the Anglican Church did not? Let's listen and find out.
If we could start with the Muslim prayer room first of all, I mean, is this of any significance to you?
Well, so yes and no. It's significant because of the way it's been misreported. And so I'm normally on the other side of the conversation. I'm usually asked to talk about my outrage that Christians are getting the rough end of a deal and Muslims are being favoured. But I'm very pleased to be able to appear on the other side of the argument today, because this is all nonsense and it's inflammatory nonsense. We shouldn't be giving it the oxygen it's being given. What happens is that in the Vatican there's an incredible library, really stupendous. And one of the things they've done is they've gathered a lot of Islamic material from the Ottoman Empire and elsewhere. And so, as with all libraries, serious academics turn up and they say, we'd like access, please. And they go through identity checks, and it's quite a laborious process, and they finally get admitted. And it's no surprise that there's Islamic scholars go there, because we've got Islamic materials. And during the day, they want to say their prayers. Of course they do. They're Muslims. And they've been given a small room with a carpet so they don't hurt their heads. It's a tiny piece of generous hospitality. You know, it's in the same way you'd give them a sandwich at lunchtime. For goodness sake, they're human beings. What would you do? And the fact this has been turned into, Rome and capitulating to the forces of Islam is just nonsense. It's simply the simplest of hospitalities in a particular academic context, which is highly specific and not replicated anywhere else.
What a brilliant response, if I may say so, Gavin. Well, first of all, it's established that you often will be taking a counter-argument with regard to Islam, to how it is an act of hospitality. I can see it as plain as day. It's a nice thing to do to other people. And I think you really put pay to it. Well done. Thank you.
As you hear, Gavin describes this as simple hospitality, nothing more. And he said no big deal should be made out of this room. Now let's hear what Gavin says about the king's impending visit to the Vatican, where he will be praying with the Pope.
This reported the king to worship with Pope Leo. I think it's next week, on a visit to the Vatican. Does this excite you?
Well, see, I've changed sides now, and the trouble is, whistleblowers are never welcome anywhere, and if you change your team, no one's going to love you. So I'm in a position of not being loved by anybody, having been an enthusiastic Anglican for 40 years and now become a Roman Catholic. What's interesting about this is that effectively the king historically is a kind of pope. So Charles is the Anglican Pope. That was what Henry VIII set out to do. He was a totalitarian tyrant. It wasn't just about the marriage, though that was the catalyst. He was a despot, and he didn't like the idea of anyone, foreigner or not, interfering with the way he ran the country. And so he had megalomaniac ambitions. He not only wanted to be completely in charge as king, but he decided he wanted to be Pope as well. So he made himself supreme governor of the English Church, which is a piece of madness. And if you sat down and looked at it today, you'd say, the guy he needed Prozac, he needed some help. This is not a sensible thing to do. Now, the fact is, this piece of spiritual megalomania has been passed down the genetic generations. So Charles has inherited it, and effectively, in one sense, this is quite exciting, because we've got the Anglican Protestant European anti-pope meeting the real pope.
Yes.
Now, I'm a great fan of the real Pope. I like the real thing when I see it, and I think the inauthentic stuff needs to be called out. So, I'm calling out the King Charles, the anti-Pope. So I'm very pleased he's going to pay his respects. And again, I hope he'll be given a sandwich and a cup of water, and given hospitality, and I hope they'll be nice to him. But the fact is that behind this, there's something much bigger. And that is that a friend of mine who's a fairly well-known Anglican bishop, one day we were having a crisis meeting and he said, Gav, this is the end of a 500-year-old experiment. Basically, he said the CV is going down the drain and it's run out of steam. For all kinds of reasons, we don't need to go into at the moment. So the reason I think this is important is that it is absolutely the case that the CAV is in real trouble. They don't know how to turn it around. They don't know what their role is because it was invented to avoid a civil war. The whole idea of the CAV was, look, we've got a huge religious and political crisis in Europe. How can we keep the lid on things? So in a sense, it's a piece of, it's something that Peter Mandelson would have been proud to have invented. and consequently, it doesn't have legs. Now, Dear Charles is so interesting. The anti-pope is going to see the real pope just at the moment the anti-pope's experiments failed. Well, that's interesting.
Gavin calls it a meeting of the real pope versus the anti-pope. Quite a take. But Gavin also says there's something more behind this visit. Perhaps the Church of England is in serious trouble. As someone said, the 500-year experiment might finally be over. Here, Gavin discusses why he converted to Catholicism and what he finds in it that he did not find satisfying in the Church of England. Let's listen.
Can I ask, and by all means, you can tell me to mind my own business, but I'm absolutely intrigued. What does the Catholic Church, Catholic faith offer you, Gavin, that the Anglican Church didn't?
It's much bigger than that, even. We're in a civilization rise and fall.
Yes.
We're in a moment where our civilization is falling. It's not just AI and dehumanization and families falling apart and people not. There's a whole load of stuff going on, and the civilization that we're in at the moment was built by the Catholic Church. It's built by the Catholic imagination. It's one of the reasons why I got so cross with the graffiti at Canterbury Cathedral, because the cathedrals are part of the Catholic imagination, the most beautiful things ever made, and the idea that we can kind of defecate in them is just so stupid. But this is a really big thing. I've come to believe that only the Catholic Church can save our civilization. It's a huge claim, and I realise it sounds
a huge claim.
But the point is, there's nothing else. There's no other philosophy, there's no other series of values, there's no other politics, there's no other religion. I mean, there are other religions, but they do different things. So I believe that if the Catholic Church has to get its own act together, it's not in great shape either. This is not
It's true.
It's got all kinds of people should be spanked and held to account. Yeah. And I mean that in the non-erotic sense. But one of the things I looked at Anglicanism, which I thought originally was a kind of very civilized way of drawing extremes together, and it was. But actually, the context is everything. Our context is terribly serious. We're losing freedom of speech, we're losing humanity, we're losing the sanctity of life, we're losing a whole load of things that make life worth living. They were given birth to by the Catholic Church, which evangelized Europe and drove paganism out. Paganism is not very nice. It's about power. It's about the strong oppressing the weak and using their magic to do it. It's not good. And so although Christians get a bit of stick for driving the pagans out, you wouldn't want to, Nazism was pagan. You want to know what real contemporary paganism looked like? With the Norse gods and real racism and real superiority, they were the Nazis. That's what we've kept at bay and what we're going to get back. So I don't see any alternative than the Catholic Church, the Catholic ideology and imagination to doing that. And that's one of the reasons why I whistle blew and changed side.
As you heard from Gavin, the Catholic Church is the one way to save civilization. There are many religions and many ideas out there, but Gavin firmly believes in this interview, he states that the Catholic Church is the one way to save the civilization as we know it. We'd love to hear your comments below. Tell us what you think about this interview, all of the different topics, and don't forget to like and subscribe to get our future videos. God bless.